You begin in a state of balance, but then that balance is disrupted. This disruption grows into a greater threat, and you struggle against that threat until all seems lost. But by the heroic quality of your character, you overcome it and return to a state of balance. Hans Christian Andersen, author of some of the world's most famous fairy tales, once said, "Where words fail, music speaks." So one of the most famous writers in the world believed that music is more expressive than language. So in this video, we're going to put that idea to the test and look at the relationship between music and the art of storytelling. Music really is a fascinating mystery. By just combining a few notes together, you can conjure an impressively wide range of emotions and ideas. So somewhere inside our minds, we make a connection between the musical sound that we hear and what we feel inside. And if you're like me, you've always wondered about exactly how that works. So does the meaning of a chord depend on outside cultural influences? Or is there something inherent in the chord that gives it its emotional meaning? Of course, one way we can explain music is by looking at music theory, which is really valuable, but not everybody speaks that language. And in any case, it doesn't really answer all of the mysteries about how we experience music. So in this video, I won't refer to any musical theory whatsoever. Instead, let's think about other things in the human experience that might make a good analogy for music. So here's an interesting question. Can we translate music into something we can see? And in fact, the language of music does borrow from the language of sight. Some chords are described as being colorful. Other chords are described as being dark or bright. But this is kind of cheating because we're using the middleman of language. What I'm wondering is the degree to which sound and light are directly analogous to one another. And they do have something in common. They both propagate through space in waves. So maybe sound that has a lower frequency is analogous to light that has a lower frequency. But the problem is that that correlation doesn't really manifest in our experience of those two phenomena. And by that I just mean that the color red doesn't sound lower in pitch, and higher pitches don't look blue. At the end of the day, sound and light are just different phenomena, and any phenomenological connection we try and make between them is just going to be arbitrary. And you can really see this if we try to directly translate a chord into a color. It just doesn't work. There's no substantial connection there. Okay, so what if we try a different sense organ? The language of music also borrows from the language of taste. So some chords are spicy. Some chords are rich. Some are crunchy. But again, in our experiment here, we want to avoid the middleman of language. And actually, language is pretty lousy at describing taste, if you think about it. Imagine the taste of a banana. What words would you use to describe it? Whatever you come up with will either be an approximation that refers to other tastes, or it will be self-referential. You could maybe put it on like a taste spectrum, which would show its relative level of sweetness or umami or whatever. But there are no words that will accurately convey the taste of a banana to somebody who has never tasted a banana or anything like it. So the sound of music and the taste of food present the same philosophical problem. They're both abstract, subjective human experiences that are beyond the reach of language. So, just for fun, let's take language out of the equation completely. What happens if we try to translate music directly into taste? Weirdly, this makes way more sense than the color analogy. Like, the correlations make a kind of intuitive sense to me. In other words, I can imagine a metaphor in which a dimension of music correlates to a dimension of taste. So let's imagine our chords on a spectrum of dissonance. Chords with very little dissonance sound like this. Medium dissonance sounds like this. And very dissonant sounds like this. To me, there's an objectively meaningful logic in the idea that less dissonant chords are less spicy. This connection works because spice might be unpleasant in a way that's roughly analogous to the way that musical dissonance might be unpleasant. Personally, I like a bit of spice, but not so much that it ruins the dish. So that's the farthest we've come so far in translating our conscious experience of music into another conscious experience. But let's forget about sensations for just a moment and look at emotions. The language of emotion is by far our most abundant source of musical metaphor. A chord can be joyful. It can be melancholic. It can be unsettling. But where the magic really happens is when a chord changes. In fact, one very curious thing about the Western system of music is that some chords want to change. See if you can hear it. This chord wants to be this chord. You can increase the tension to make that resolution more satisfying. And of course, if a chord wants to be something, I can subvert that expectation by changing it to something else. So if you think about it, music is really just the art of playing with tension and resolution over time to take you on an emotional journey. In other words, music is the art of storytelling. And it should be no surprise that we use the same language in both. Drama should have tension, a narrative should have a rhythm, a story should have a theme, a character arc should have a resolution. So let's try another experiment. Let's translate a story told in words into a story told in music. Let's give it a shot. Once upon a time, a group of animals decided to build a communal shelter to protect them from the weather. Each animal contributed in his own way, except the lazy grasshopper, who played and sang songs. The wise old turtle warned the grasshopper about the importance of taking shelter from the elements. The grasshopper scoffed at the turtle and bid him hide in his shell. One night, a powerful storm arrived, and the grasshopper asked if he could join the animals in their shelter. But the animals told him that by fault of his idle ways, he had not earned his place in the community. Realizing his mistake, he asked for forgiveness, and the wise old turtle forgave him and granted him a place in the shelter. After that, the grasshopper always helped the other animals, for he had learned that hard work makes a sturdy home. Now, to finally put Hans Christian Andersen's idea to the test, let's tell a story without words, only with music. I'd say that one had a happy ending, but what about a story with a different moral? The philosopher Henry David Thoreau once said that no definition of poetry is adequate unless it be poetry itself. At the end of the day, we will only ever have imperfect analogies for understanding our conscious experience of music or any other experience we have as conscious beings. And in that sense, music's ability to make us feel will probably always be a mystery. But I think part of the answer lies in the fact that music and stories seem to share a lot of common ground in the human experience. Whatever it is that music and stories share, that is the essence of what it is to be human. So I'll leave you with one last quote from one of the great storytellers, Louis Armstrong, who said, "Not that music is an important part of life or that music is a nice metaphor for life. He said, music is life itself." Thank you for watching. Please subscribe if you think I should make more videos, and I'll see you on the next one.